Rev up your engines!
Well, here's a guy in a Chevy Volt, needed a battery, and they told him it was going to cost almost $30,000 to replace the battery. And this was a Chevy Volt hybrid, not a completely electric car, right? Now, some people said, oh, it's fake. No, it isn't. The reporters looked into it, and they found the dealer, and they said, yes, that is a real estimate for fixing that car, because this is how it always goes. And this is why I warn people about buying into new technology. Well, they don't make those anymore, so GM can't get the battery. They got to buy it from a third party, which marks it up, and the price gets higher and higher. That's the problem. You go out and buy an electric car. Which one are you going to buy? What if they don't make them anymore? GM's still in business, but they don't make those anymore, so they don't make parts for them either. Then you're stuck with a car that you got to pay 30 grand to replace the battery in. And don't think this is, small. I've had the same thing happen with friends in Canada. They bought the Nissan Leaf. They thought great. Then they found out they had to replace the battery. It was costing them over 15 grand to replace the battery in a stupid thing. The car wasn't worth what the battery cost to replace. That's why I warn people against these technologies. You don't even know what company is going to be around, or if they're still around, are they still going to make that model? Well, we don't make that model anymore. So, you go through a third party, it's going to be 30 grand to replace a battery in a hybrid car. That is the problem with anybody getting involved in this type of technology. You have no idea which one is going to win, which company is going to go out of business, not even make their cars anymore. Maybe you would buy a Rivian for a whole bunch of money and then find out the company goes bankrupt 2-3 years from now, you can't get parts for them. So your big investment was all peed down a toilet. You have no idea what the future is going to be like. None whatsoever. That's why I say, don't be a guinea pig and buy this new stuff when it comes out. Wait till it's been out a few years. See, oh, this works, this doesn't work. Especially with battery technology. They keep saying, oh, we got better ones coming in the future, Well, wait for the future when the better ones are out. That's what I say. Andre Wilson says, Scotty, what do you know about the Mitsubishi Outlander 2016 transmission? I know enough not to buy one. That's the weak point of those Outlanders. Their automatic transmissions are weak. Mitsubishi has always had problems with their automatic transmission. That, and in the past, a lot of their engines burnt oil like mad because for some reason, even though they've been making them for quite some time, they didn't know how to make piston rings. They always wear out and then they burn oil. I had a customer with Mitsubishi in Houston in the 80s. You could see the smoke coming out. It'd burn a quart of oil every 50 miles. So I would not buy one of those. If you've got one that has a bad transmission, good luck to find an honest guy that maybe can fix it without having to rebuild the whole thing. Or if, say, it only goes up when it gets hot or it's starting to slip, trade it in immediately. Places like Carvana, all those things, as long as they're still in business, they give a lot of money on trade-ins. Get rid of the stupid thing because it's not worth putting that kind of money into those things. To do an automatic transmission correctly in one of those things, it could cost you anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000. And half the time, even then, they don't fix them, right? Demetri McCarr says, Scotty, my Mazda CX-5 2021 Turbo with 10,000 miles started burning oil. Like I warned people, you get a car with a small engine and a turbo, it strains the engine, and it can lead to early oil burning. Now, don't listen to any of the crap they tell you. You buy a turbo. You got to buy that new GF6 oil, expensive oil, and you got to change it every 5,000 miles because it lubricates the engine, it lubricates the turbo, it lubricates the whole system. You don't go 10,000 miles. Change it every 5. Now, it's burning oil now. Maybe you didn't change the oil enough and it's really dirty oil. Pray it's that. If you change the oil tomorrow and put in that GF6 oil and a long life filter and you find out it's not burning oil, pray you only got 10,000 miles on it, that it was just because it was dirty oil, and then change it every 5,000 miles. Otherwise, live with whatever it does because it's a 2021, you're paying on it, and you'd lose your shirt if you trade it in now. Jordan Sparks says, hey Scotty, what's the difference between short-term and long-term fuel trim? Well, they kind of explain themselves, but here's what it is. As you're running down the road, your car wants to run perfectly. Short-term is what's happening right now, whatever you're doing. If you're idling, if you're going 60 miles an hour, short-term shows you what's happening right now. Long-term is averaged over the entire driving cycle. In that respect, the most important thing is long-term fuel trim, because when you accelerate, the fuel trim short-term is going to change. When you decelerate, it's going to change. The only way you're going to get accurate short-term fuel trim is, say, you get on the highway. Once you're going 60 miles an hour, put it on cruise control. Then after 4 or 5 minutes, you watch the short-term fuel trim. It should be pretty much the same as the long-term fuel trim. Now, if it stays pretty close to zero, it's fine. A lot of guys will look, oh, my short-term fuel fuel term is, they'll say, well, it might be when the engine's warming up, it's cold, you're accelerating, decelerating. The long term is the most important. If your long term is close to zero, your car's running fine. But if your long term is adding and subtracting 8 or 10%, then you got a serious problem you want to fix. Big Money Bobby says, with the new Maverick Hybrid, when should you change zero? 5,000 miles? I would definitely do that. I would get the GF6 oil, and I would change it every 5,000 miles, because if you're talking about a little bitty turbocharged engine, you want to keep that oil as clean as possible. I got a customer with one. He's changing his oil every 3, which is probably a little bit too soon, but it's not going to hurt anything. What the heck? Oil's cheap. Engines cost a fortune. Who knows? Maybe I'd change it every 3 if I bought one, but I'd never buy one. One, I never buy new vehicles when they first came out, and I don't spend that kind of money on a vehicle. I wait until they've been around for 6, 7 years. They're proven that they last. If they last, maybe those won't, who knows? But then I can get them dirt cheap too. I'm a cheapskate, you know? I mean, I'll buy a $17,000 motorcycle. I'll wait when it's 12 years old and I can pick it up for $3,500. I'm not going to pay 17 grand for the thing, right? I'll buy it used and save money. You too, says Scotty. What kind of fuel injector cleaner can be used on a turbocharged diesel engine? We're talking diesel here, baby. Diesel engines, you got to use diesel cleaner. Gasoline engines are completely different. If you put a gasoline cleaner in most diesels, it might blow them up. You got to use diesel fuel cleaner. You got to only use diesel stuff, just like when you change the oil. You don't buy gasoline engine oil. You buy the engine oil that's made for diesel engines. They have different specs. They have different things. But make sure it's for diesels. Do not put the gasoline cleaner in a diesel tank. They're not made for that. Well, there's a monster clean, in quotation marks, hydrogen hub being created in the Northeast. There's only one problem. The word clean. This isn't green. This is clean. And like everything else, they lie with names. A bunch of this is petrochemical based. Gas or even coal. They just change the definition of what clean is so they can get the government money, rake it in, even though it's not clean at all. They're still using petrochemicals to create it. And then they say, oh, well, the petrochemical industry got involved, obviously, with the legislation and added this little addition, obviously, that says, well, you can make it from petrochemicals, too. That's clean because we'll scrub it with scrubbers and blah, blah, blah. What happens when they make laws? The scumbags of the earth get their crappy products in under a false premise. I'll give you a perfect example. Years ago, the Canadian government, which I found amazing. I always thought they knew what they were doing there, but obviously they don't either. The Canadian government had ketchup listed as a vegetable, so they could serve all the kids the ketchup, right? Oh, it's got tomatoes, it's a vegetable, right? I mean, the main ingredient in that is sugar. But legally said ketchup is a vegetable, right? Well, we know it isn't. It's like natural in food. Natural flavors can mean just about anything. I read a whole article about that. Natural flavors could mean absolutely anything. All it means that if you have food with natural flavors, the natural flavors aren't nutritional. You don't eat it for nutrition. It's just added to give flavor. And it can be absolutely anything. Well, it's made from plants or animals. Yeah, they use all these chemicals to make it out of it. By the time you're done, what's left is not natural at all. But the word means nothing. In this case, clean hydrogen, it means nothing too. It's the same old BS of making a word that covers just about everything, even with natural foods. This is natural food. What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. Now, of course, they're talking about, we'll use windmills to make electricity, to electrolysis to make hydrogen. And they talked about Rhode Island had the first offshore wind farm, which is true, but it hardly generates any electricity at all. And if you think they're going to be building windmills all on the East Coast where all the billionaires and millionaires have their homes on the ocean, they don't want to look at the windmill where they say, oh, we're going to give money for green energy, and everybody will call themselves green, and away they go. Only in this case, it's clean. They wouldn't let us call it green because green is an actual definition, right? But clean, it's clean. It's not green, but it's clean. Don't ever believe what these people are telling you because they're so full of baloney. It's unbelievable. And of course, you can imagine how many lawyers got involved in writing these laws and saying, well, we can include the petrochemical stuff because it's clean. It's not green, but it's clean. The stuff that we always call dirty is now called clean. It's not like when I was a kid. There was small, medium, and large. Now there's 5,000 different sizes. The definition means nothing anymore. And of course, they never even look long term either because they talk about, oh, the clean offshore wind, right? Those things in the salt water and storms don't last long before they fall apart and have to be rebuilt, or they just fall into the ocean, and they cost a fortune to build, they cost a fortune to maintain, and it's often not economically feasible. because of the destruction that the salt water does to the blades. Something that isn't all that feasible over time. Do a little study offshore of Great Britain where they have offshore oil. The problems they have with those blades breaking and the things breaking down, it costing a fortune. It's not what you think it is. You know, it's a great idea, but when you put it into practice, it doesn't create that much energy for the money that you put into it. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.